I was reading over lunch about this initiative of the EU, which is that new motor vehicles are manufactured from 2035 onwards will not be able to use fossil fuels. And of course, there's now a bit of a problem with that. And Germany's put their hand up and Italy's supporting them because Germany, of course, makes BMW, Mercedes and Porsche and things like that. And of course, Italy makes Maserati and Ferrari and Lamborghini and things like this. And so they're all not particularly happy about this, having spent their entire lives building machines which are incredible. So they're trying to lobby for e-fuels to be allowable. And I thought, well, I've heard of e-fuels, but what exactly is an e-fuel? So I looked it up. Amazing. Do you know what they are? Do you know what e-fuels are? Absolutely fascinating. It's a fuel where they create hydrogen and then they use hydrogen in the car and it mixes with carbon dioxide and produces a gas mixture, which is not dissimilar to the one that fossil fuels produce in the gas chamber of a combustion engine, right? And it actually sucks CO2 out of the environment. Porsche has just invested in a company which is called HIF. And I was just looking at their website to understand a bit more about e-fuels. And so it would appear that what they do is they make the hydrogen. Now, issue number one is you can't just say, oh, they're making hydrogen, because there's clean hydrogen, grey hydrogen, and dirty hydrogen. And what that's to do with is how they make it, because it requires a substantial amount of electricity to make it. So the question is, how are they making the electricity? And HIF are doing it from solar and wind, which would be considered to be clean. So their hydrogen is considered to be clean. Right? So Porsche's invested, what was it, 75 billion or million? I can't remember. I was reading the article a second ago. And they've ordered something like 130,000 liters of the stuff, and they're going to use it in their racing, in their race. So they're going to demonstrate that this e-fuel can be used in a combustion engine in a highly competitive racing environment. And I think that's part of their, we can show you this can work. And the neat thing about that is what this regulation is that comes through in 2035 is that cars cannot emit greenhouse gases. Okay. So e-fuels are a very exciting alternative because it allows us not only to have zero emissions, but also to harvest CO2. Now, currently, there isn't the technology anywhere else to actually do that. There's no like mechanism to doing it. So the fact that we can use motor vehicles to harvest CO2 is really quite exciting, isn't it? The stuff you learn when you talk about ESG, hey? How about that? Yeah, I thought I'd have a look at them. So this is where they are. They've got this first commercial plant in Chile. It's a startup, and it's been backed. And one of the backers is Porsche, and tells you about the process. So you make your H2O, you break it apart using electricity, which is actually, I don't know if anyone studied chemistry, but to break apart molecules is really quite a feat. You know, massive feat. I think it's also to do with how nuclear bombs work, by the way. But I forgot too long ago. Anyway, so I like the idea that they can do it. I like the idea that they're using green energy sources to provide the electricity to do it. And of course, you know, very sunny in Chile, isn't it? So they won't have a problem with that. And then further processing. Well, I don't tell. What does it tell us? What the green hydrogen? What's it do? Okay. So renewable power, blah blah blah. E-fuels. Further processing. So e-fuel used, production, shipping fuel. There's already shipping companies that are doing this, by the way. And I think KLM was one of the people trying to experiment with it and things like that. And then in the end, they do what? chemically equivalent conventional fossil fuels, therefore compatible with current engines. So this is why they're so excited, because they don't have to change the technology that they've spent half a century refining. There's going to be a lot of petrol heads that will be quite happy about this, right? Because one of the big things about the supercar industry that has been problematic is that when you make an electric car, instead of you having Jeremy Clarkson noises, you get, there's something weird about that. You see a great big four-wheel drive and you see the person driving it and it's like this. You see, a supercar looks exactly like everything else. It's like, so they've actually put electronic exhaust noises in these cars now. And you can choose what you want. You can have noisy, poppy, whatever it might be, yeah? Depends on your day. I have a friend that's got one. He chooses this thing, he's like, and when he's in town, he makes it quiet and stuff like that. Fascinating. But the implication there is I could put that on my bicycle. I can make my bicycle sound like a supercar. Exactly. Anyway, but going back to this then, e-fuels, wow, what a brilliant technology. So where I'm going with this is that one of the things we're going to do is think about how we start and putting together a portfolio. And we've looked at a couple of different ideas so far, which is we could look at an index and we could choose from the index on the basis that, hey, it's all been squeaky clean adjusted by the index provider. And as long as we've done our due diligence, we can say, well, it's within the index, it must be okay, right? Or we can look at this cutting edge technology, which not only would align with the ideals of sustainable investing, but also looks like it's going to make a positive impact on the planet. Some of the tools that we can use, and I was hoping you get a chance to use on Bloomberg, they have sort of ESG Central, I call it, which is where we can go and we can look at companies and we can look at the disclosures that they've made. And so the traditional area to go and look at a company would be its financial statements, what we call fundamental analysis. And we can look at their revenues and we can look at their costs. Then we can look at various ratios to understand that. And then we can compare those against other companies. And that will be the traditional analyst's approach. Now we have the ability to integrate ESG disclosures into that same data pot, if you want, which allows us to integrate the ESG disclosures into our analysis in the same way as traditional fundamental analysis. Now that gives you a choice. You can either take someone else's word for it, or you can develop your own model. Some people would say developing our own model would give us the standout that we need, but probably following someone else's methodology that fits and aligns is more defensible.